I'm Lynn Ellsworth. I am chair. In my regular job, I'm an economist, but in my fun job, I am chair of HumanScaleNYC, which is a nonprofit. It's a citywide network of over 100 neighborhood organizations. We proudly and by policy do not take money from real estate, nor do we have any members of big real estate or even small real estate, when I think about it, on our board of directors. We are not NIMBYs, we call ourselves SWABIes, someone with a better idea. I am also happy to co-coordinate the Empire Station Coalition with Sam. We are a coalition of some 15 neighborhood and civic organizations. Before I give my remarks, though, I had 2 points of fact that I wanted to give to you that I heard you questioning earlier. The first is just that there's a perplexing figure about how many households will be affected by this project. We had a volunteer go through the post office data for all the project sites and came up with like 2,300 households are getting mail in all the collected project sites, whereas Empire State Development Corporation keeps referring to 126 households over in Site 1, and I think that really should be cleared up somehow, because I think this is, post office data is pretty good for what's going on there. The second has to do with the academic literature on TIFs. I just recall a literature review out of University of Chicago that looked at TIFs throughout the country, and the conclusion was very mixed. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But even in the ones that it does, a lot of the research is very faulty because it neglects the negative external effects in the surrounding neighborhoods that are not part of the TIF, who have sort of falls in property value because they can't compete with the TIF anymore. So on to my remarks. There are 3 financial problems in the Penn project. The first is there is legitimate disagreement about the transit vision, about what's actually possible, where to put Gateway, where the track should go, and there's also disagreement over the linked financial plan. Amtrak and the MTA say the only option is to demolish a city block on 30th Street, put new tracks there underground, and let Vornado put big towers up on top of it all. Rethink begs to differ. They propose a less destructive plan at possibly lower cost to expand track capacity. Theirs combines through running with a regional unified transit system. Tri-State Transportation Campaign proposes a third version that also includes through running. The regional unified transit network keeps popping up and is tantalizing because with it, regional gross domestic product would rise in an equitable way throughout the region, lifting boats for the many instead of, in the current project, concentrating wealth in Midtown in the hands of a single property owner. When GDP is rising, government can issue normal bonds without fear. Another disagreement. ESD argues that the only financial option for the public is to subsidize, using eminent domain and the power of the state, Vornado's speculative 20-year build-out of new Class A towers and then negotiate payments from Vornado after demolishing historic assets, evicting people, and destroying thousands of small business jobs. But there are other ways to pay for a better Penn station, be it Penn underground, be it Penn above ground, be it the old Penn station, be it a modern one. I'm talking about normal bond issues under a public authority or voter-approved bonds, reshuffling budget items, like just not spending $8 billion on new jails in New York City. You could easily grab some of that money if you could convince the city to take some of it. You could use the new revenue sources that are listed in the IBO's annual report that comes out every year. You could use general revenues, or you could pull the new federal money allocated in the Infrastructure Act. The second problem. There are just too many red flags in how ESD has managed this project and dismissed analysis of alternatives. By design, there is too little public oversight or control over what ESD does. And even though an Institute for Justice study concluded that ESD has long been using eminent domain as Robin Hood in reverse, their words, taking from the poor and giving to the rich, there are valid concerns about the undue influence of Vornado, who brags in their shareholder report about their monopoly position in the concourse commerce, about their monopoly position in the properties around the area. Let's recall that Vornado is one of 3 property owners who collectively own 75% of all Manhattan's commercial property. That's highly concentrated property ownership, and most of it's in Midtown. So of course they want this. There have been gag orders for the CACWAG and faulty logic and outright lies in the EIS from the EDC. The world in which ESD was born, I conclude, has changed dramatically. And yet ESD can still declare any neighborhood blighted, even if it is obviously not blighted. It can hand it over to big real estate, impose a bad project, and put the public in debt, all without voter or legislator approval. This problem might be addressed through the creation of a commission to recommend changes to ESD's powers and oversight structure. I'm glad to hear that there is some talk of legislation on that, and I will definitely mobilize our network about that. The third problem is about New York's version of Stockholm Syndrome. It prevents us from considering alternatives that don't benefit big real estate. What do I mean? Well, given that 30% of the city's revenue comes from property taxes, we often feel hostage to big real estate's claim that public goods must only come through air rights or eminent domain giveaways to big real estate in the hopes of finding more property tax revenue. By accepting such a reductive idea of what constitutes economic development, government makes itself hostage to the luxury city model, which requires displacement of low-income and middle-class people and small businesses with richer people and richer businesses who can pay the ever-rising property taxes. Government ends up a real estate speculator just like Vornado, and this eliminates discussion about how to do equitable economic development, and it puts a straitjacket on creative public policy making. I urge our politicians to find a way to referee these two disagreements with independent experts who are not prey to Stockholm Syndrome and who don't have a dog in the fight. Although I advocate comparative cost-benefit analysis as a way forward instead of just asserting the virtues of the project, I have a warning about its use. One weakness of cost-benefit analysis that's well known to economists is that there are things that have no price that can't be calculated on a spreadsheet even though they have high value to society. For example, consider how the Penn neighborhood now is a reservoir of Class B and C office space, which is considered contemptible in the Empire State Development Corporation's worldview. But Class B and C office space provides a home to small businesses who could never pay Class A rents. They are the heart of New York's uniqueness and the true engine of job growth. Their worth in a democracy can't be reduced to the value of their property taxes. Other examples of things of great value that don't have a price: the rights of residents to have a secure place in the world instead of being evicted, the existence of great historic buildings that connect our children to history, or the presence of Franciscan friars who operate social services in an historic church. To be sure, Vornado and the Empire State Development Corporation can give them all money and tell them to scram. But is that the city we want to live in? Thank you.